There are several online tools that we can use to check the contrast ratio of text and background colors. I'd like to highlight three of them, and I'll start with the WebAIM Contrast Checker. The WebAIM Contrast Checker is a free online tool that can help to evaluate the contrast between text and its background. Let's see how to use the tool. First of all, go to its website at webaim.org/resources/contrast checker. Select the foreground and background color that you want to test. You can enter the color code manually or use the color picker. We can also use the lightness slider to adjust the selected color. The contrast checker will display the contrast ratio between the foreground and the background right below. If we scroll down, we'll see if the contrast ratio is compliant with the recommended levels by WCAG for normal and large text, as well as graphical and UI components. If the contrast ratio is below the recommended levels, the contrast checker will display fail in red to show that it is not accessible. If the contrast ratio is above the recommended level, the contrast checker will display pass in green to show that it is accessible. You can adjust the colors as needed to achieve an acceptable contrast ratio to your preferences. The second tool I'd like to mention is called simply Contrast Ratio. You can find it on contrast-ratio.com. This free tool allows you to enter the hexadecimal values for the text and background colors and check the contrast ratio in the circle in the middle of the page. By clicking on this circle, we will see the precise contrast ratio and a text saying passes AAA level for any size text and AA for user interface components and graphical objects. But let's say I'd like to pick some other colors to check their contrast ratio. So for example, if I want to pick a different color for text, let's say I want something more blue, and on the other side I can pick the background color and something more yellowish. We can see that whenever I pick a different color on the color picker, the contrast ratio in the middle changes. So if I pick a darker background, we'll see that this circle in the middle turns red, which is also a signal that the conformance level fails. And exactly, if we hover over this circle, we'll see fails WCAG 2.0 and 2.1 with a sad face. So let's pick a different background color, and here we go, 7.21. We can also swap colors, so between the background and the text color. And this was contrast ratio. The third and last tool I'd like to talk about is Color Contrast Checker. You can find it at colorcontrast.cc. Here we can manually add color codes for the background and the foreground color, or we can also play around with the hue, saturation, or lightness levels. And on the upper left side of the page, we'll see the contrast ratio, which in this case is 10.35. And on the other side of the page, we'll see whether this ratio passes or fails the conformance levels, AA or AAA, for large and normal text. And we can also play around here by reversing colors or even saving this color combination. Here are some other color combinations that I had saved earlier. And this was Color Contrast Checker.